my background, I like to say, is in organization studies, management, leadership more specifically. I started out, I started out in banking, you know, but then it's that place where you discover yourself and get to know more and more about what your interests are. And then I thought, I really don't I like the money, but I like the people bit more. And I thought to myself, I like to study more about people in the world of work. And somehow I found myself in human resource development and organization studies. And then I did a master's because I left banking and I did a master's. And I went on to do a PhD in leadership studies, and this is where I really started to teach at the university level. And this got me more and more interested in people, the way people work and organize work, behave at work, and then more specifically leadership, leading the leaders, leadership, the relationship. And I have evolved over time as a management scholar, as a critical leadership scholar. I have taught in a number of universities. I think for the University of Exeter Centre for Leadership Studies, and more recently at the London School of Economics, where I taught leadership as well as decision sciences and negotiation analysis, and then here at Birkbeck, where I'm now part of the OP, Organizational Psychology Group. Critical management studies, more specifically now critical leadership studies, is really, I think it's about asking critical questions, problematizing issues that are important and that either people have overlooked or people do not know about, or they see and they really don't know how to articulate what they see, but they know there's a problem. So essentially, we, as critical management scholars, we carry that, you can think of us as those who carry that magnifying lens, and we look at it and say, there's a problem there. Why is this not like that? So we problematize issues in management and, generally in the world around us, in the world of work and people. And with me, leadership and the way we develop leaders and build leadership capacity, we problematize, these things and seek to find better ways of doing things, alternative thinking, if you like, but ultimately towards a positive end that works for most of us. Essentially, you see, let's go to the definition of leadership. Generally, there's really no one universal definition of leadership, which is where the problem really begins. Because, if we say, and all scholars agree that there is no universal definition of leadership, now that is a problem when we say we are developing leadership. Because if we do not know for sure, or we cannot pin down in a way that works for everywhere and everybody in every place what leadership is, then what do we say we're developing when we say we're doing leadership development? Do you get what I mean? So essentially the argument is that leadership means different things to different people. And I wrote a paper, Leadership, Much Like Beauty, in the Eye of the Beholder. Who's a leader? I'm sure you've had questions like that before. Who's a leader? What makes a great leader? Leaders, are they born or made? And all of this, theoretical confusion around the concept of leadership. So as a critical leadership scholar, my question is to, again, problematize that and say, look, if there's all of this theoretical confusion or vagueness about this concept so important, this social concept, maybe it is socially constructed. And if that's the case, whose constructions of leadership do we seek to develop in other people? So when you bring this down to Africa, the question is, shouldn't we be more engaged with how Africans, in whatever societies they find themselves, understand leadership before we begin to seek to develop leadership in Africa? Do you see where I'm going? So it's leadership development. My research essentially asks about leadership development in Africa. Leadership development, developing what? I think I belong to the qualitative tradition, essentially. But you see, it's important to be open about these things, because as much as I am a qualitative researcher, the question and what it is you seek to find out more often than not would dictate the paradigm you take, to these things. I'm interested in experience and essence and meaning and the construction of identity. So that's at the very core positions me as a qualitative researcher, because I'm interested in rich detail and rich pictures, isn't it? But for collaboration, there are some questions that you might want to cover a very wide scope, breadth of, and you need really wide coverage data. You need the field to be really wide, and then you might want to think of collaborating with someone whose strength is in quantitative research and analysis. So yes, there's always room to collaborate, but at the very core, I belong to the qualitative school of thought.